Recently, Samurai Warriors 4 DX was unexpectedly released on Steam. While Samurai Warriors 4-2 is already on PC, this has brought up the most obvious question. What about Samurai Warriors 4 Empires? Out of all the variations to Warriors games, the Empires titles have always been my favorite, as I have done several reviews of them on my channel. With everything going on, I figured now would be the best time to review Samurai Warriors 4 Empires and see if it's worth an eventual PC port. Not saying that it is something that will happen, but something to consider. So when you start the game, you have 3 scenarios initially to choose from, with 3 more that can be unlocked. Personally, my favorite scenario is the Battle of Sekigahara, as that one brings in various Musu officers that usually won't appear in earlier scenarios, including Munashige and Jincho Tachibana. Since I haven't completed it yet, let's go for the earliest start date possible, with the 1553 start in the Battle of Kawanakajima. There's quite a bit of interesting factions to play with, such as going with the humble rise of Nobunaga or playing the rivalry with Shingen and Kenshin. Because one of my favorite characters to play is Kotaro Fuma, we will go with the Hojo clan for this playthrough. After a quick little cutscene, you are asked to then appoint your strategist. Your strategist will give an overall boost to developing your territory, replenishing troops, raising fame, raising loyalty, and increasing strategy points. You'll then need to select your magistrates, who can also help in this regard and will suggest policies for you to enact, similar to Samurai Warriors 2 Empires. Since we only have 6 officers, not including the daimyo, it's basically next man up regarding the magistrates that are selected. Many of these don't have great stats, but can at least be serviceable at the very least. My strategist to start with will be Masashige Daoji, but we will look to upgrade it as soon as possible. Once we enact the policy and end our turn, we can now move to expand our territory. Outside of the amount of gold needed to invade, food is now required to do so. Additional food will be harvested in autumn, while the amount of food depends on your rice yields. Alternatively, you can buy food if you have a shop in your territory. Food is something that you'll need to pay attention to early on, but becomes trivial once you are rolling in that cash money, boy. So now we will begin our first invasion against the Satomi clan that has only 1 territory. You're then given a cutscene, which is simple but quite effective. There are a lot of cutscenes in this game, but we will discuss that later. And now we can discuss what you'll be doing for the majority of the game, and that'll be hacking and slashing. If you are familiar with the Samurai Warriors 4 combat experience, it's basically what you'll expect. You'll have your normal attacks that can be combined to charge attacks. New to Samurai Warriors 4 was the introduction of hyper attacks, which replaces the charge attack button into its own set of attacks. These attacks are designed to clear a massive amount of troops at a time as you jump around all over the place. Certain characters like Kotaro Fuma really benefit from these attacks due to their speed. It's an overall faster paced system compared to the likes of Samurai Warriors 2, but I still found it to be very enjoyable. What I don't like, however, is the fact that the special attack has been almost completely neutered. Before Samurai Warriors 4, characters had 2 sets of special attacks to choose from, with certain characters having special movesets as well. Now there's only 1 special attack each character can do, with many of them feeling very underwhelming. I only found a handful of characters still having interesting moves, such as Kenshin's ability to enter an advanced state, or Hanzo Hattori using a shadow clone jutsu to clone himself. New to this game is also a separate meter that gets filled up known as Rage. This can be used to perform dodges while blocking. When it is filled up, you can enter Rage mode and can perform a Musu Frenzy attack, which is basically a supercharged alternative Musu attack. On normal mode, this usually will one-shot almost anything, including daimyo and main bosses. I prefer the inclusion of the additional Musu, although it can ultimately make the game very trivial, especially on anything normal and below. And speaking of difficulty, the early game is a bit too easy for my liking. Battles begin and end very quickly, as you can just breeze through most of the battle. Thankfully though, battles do get more interesting as your enemies get stronger, with higher troop count and stronger formations and tactics that can be deployed. It also gets a bit more challenging as you have more fronts to defend, as the map terrain plays a big impact on whether or not reinforcements from adjacent provinces can join in. And right, I almost actually forgot to talk about this, so let's talk about it. Formations are the same as Samurai Warriors 2 Empires, with the ability to select one before the battle and can switch one during battle depending on the amount of points you have. They aren't as overpowering as before, which is much appreciated. Tactics are also similar, with the ability to equip one passive one and 2 executable tactics. Passive tactics usually affect the battle as a whole, while executable tactics occur for only a certain amount of time. There's quite a bit of tactics to play around with, ranging from panicking the enemy to lowering the base gauge to make it easier to capture bases. New to Samurai Warriors 4 was also the ability to switch between multiple characters at once. If your player character has a relationship with another, you'll have the ability to switch between the two throughout the battle. For example, Lady Aya here is able to switch to Kenshin Uesugi due to them being siblings. As officers build relationships with each other, you'll be able to switch to more at a time, essentially giving you control of the entire battlefield. I like having this ability as it lowers on backtracking, as you can easily jump from one side of the battlefield to the other. Similar to Samurai Warriors 2 Empires, objectives will appear for you to complete. This may involve the current character you are playing as, or may require you to switch to a character to complete their objective. Completing objectives results in a deepening of a relationship between 2 officers. Having a strong relationship between 2 officers will unlock certain cutscenes, as well as granting the ability to switch between the 2 officers in battle. For the overall performance in battles, it mostly stayed at a consistent 60 frames per second, with some occasional dips here and there. It mainly happened a lot with Kotaro Fuma, as I was bouncing around all over the place. For a Warriors title, the graphics are solid, although there is quite a bit of clipping that happens within the cutscenes. I get clipping is always going to be an issue in 3D games, but I wish there was less of that here. And now let's finally get back to the strategic side of things. After defeating the Satomi clan, we are able to employ, release, and execute the officers we have captured. Since I'm going for a peaceful playthrough, we will only employ and release officers. We only captured one who did not want to join us, so we need to rely on searching for officers as well as other means to gain new ones. So I mentioned prior in this review about relationships, and already we have one developing. Masashige Daoji approached Kotaro Fuma in order to become his protege. Kotaro agrees for now and wants to see how he develops. Future battles with them will involve objectives to complete, so it'll be interesting to see how that develops. And that's the one thing that really stands out with this game. There are just so many cutscenes, ranging from standard cutscenes to fully cinematic ones. My favorite one was when Shingen and Kotaro became best friends somehow, and they were duking it out in a friendly duel. It was pretty badass getting a cutscene like that and having these two develop their relationship with each battle. And just as a side note, I had Shingen Takeda become my final strategist until unification. So for every spring, you'll have the ability to rearrange your magistrates. Depending on what has happened in the past year, certain officers will have a decreased condition and will not be able to perform their job as proficiently. This is when you'll need to switch out officers for better ones, as well as officers in better condition. Certain officers can also carry unique policies when assigned to certain positions. I like this system, as low-level officers can still contribute from a strategic sense and still feel valuable in the late game. You can even have a low-level officer rank up and gain experience from choosing their policies. Curious how a Samurai Warriors 5 Empires will handle this, although it seems to not be a possibility at the moment. So with all these political shenanigans and battles, I was able to obtain the clan objective. Depending on the clan you pick will determine their objective, whether it be to defeat a rival clan or conquering certain territories on the map. For the Hojo, it was unifying the Kanto region. From here, you can end the campaign and it will still be considered a victory, or you can go with the full unification route. Since we are in this for the long haul, my ambition extends far beyond what Kanto can offer, and I want to get every part of the land under my control. That means we are creating a Hojo heaven, whatever the hell that means. And as we expand our realm, it is recommended for us to expand our home castle. After obtaining a certain amount of territory and having a certain amount of gold, it was time to level up our castle. Building a new castle will add new rooms, meaning more magistrates to hire, and more policies that will become available to you. From here, I decided to build the castle with the shop, as it also opens up the opportunity to engage in diplomatic affairs. A shop will also be beneficial when we end up with excess gold, so this is a very good long-term investment. And with many new castles built, many battles fought, rivalries develop, friendships develop, and kids becoming adults in this world, the dream of a Hojo heaven was finally realized. As expected, we get a cinematic cutscene as our top officers reflect on the journey we went through and everything that was accomplished. I always like seeing this, as it's interesting hearing from what each officer has to say and how they will view unification. While we have completed the main playthrough, we still have quite a bit of extra features to go over. Similar to other Warriors games, you can create an officer and insert them into the chaos. The character creator here is pretty in depth with a bunch of costumes and additional options to play with. I played with a custom character a ton in 4 and 4-2, so I was happy to see it return here. It isn't on the level of Neo 2's customization, but the options here are very good. If you want to get a bit more creative with the scenarios, there is a Genesis mode which allows you to create a completely custom scenario or change up any of the existing ones. In a game like this, it's a lot of fun throwing all the Musu officers in one scenario and seeing what alliances the AI can come up with. You can get pretty wild with a Lady Ina playthrough or having Lady Oichi ushering a new era of peace. It's a fun mode that I definitely have plans to coming back to. I couldn't get any footage by the time of this review, but there is a split screen co-op mode as expected. It's fun as always, although it can get a bit repetitive for how easy the game is with two Musu officers kicking ass with each other. I found the co-op experience of Samurai Warriors 2 Empires to be far more enjoyable, although I am wondering if a competitive campaign is possible in a future entry. It's an idea that I've had in mind for a while, but not sure if it can be pulled off or if Koei Tecmo even has plans to attempt that. Overall, I do recommend Samurai Warriors 4 Empires as another solid Empires title and definitely worthy of an eventual PC port. The combat is overall fun, the dynamic storytelling is interesting, and seeing your castle grow and develop is very rewarding. My only issue is that it isn't as good as Samurai Warriors 2 Empires, especially when it comes to a level of challenge on normal. I also don't like how the special attacks were changed to only have one, as many characters did lose a bit of unique flavor. Still, I really would like to see more Empires titles on PC, especially those from prior iterations. If Koei can make that happen, as well as a port of Dynasty Warriors 7 Empires, and even a Samurai Warriors 3 Empires, I would be a very happy customer as a result. Thank you all for watching as always, and this is Powerhouse, signing off.